this computer. Can you see the lecture slides?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
All right, so now let's move on. So we are done with the statistical methods. Yeah. No. Yeah, good. So I think we are through with the statistical tools that we can use to analyze environmental data or information from the environment and able to evaluate the effect of an impact from the environment. We looked at the parametric statistics, and in that situation, we use the linear regression model to estimate the change of an environmental variable on the environmental variable of interest. So we have certain indicators that we usually measure, and then we looked at how that will impact the environment. Is it going to cause a negative? Is it going to decrease the impact on the environment, or is it going to increase the impact on the environment? So under the regression, we measure the magnitude of the impact, and then we check also whether the impact is significant or it is not significant. And then we evaluated the overall fit of the model. So we did that under simple linear regression, and then also under the multiple linear regression. We consider a situation where there is no need to assume a distribution for the data. So we considered a situation where we do not have to make any assumption about the distribution of the data. And that we looked at the non-parametric statistics. So under the non-parametric statistics, we look at the U-test, and we use that to compare whether there is difference in the median weight from two populations. We also look at the sign test, the sign rank test, and we look at the test statistic for the sign rank test. How do we draw hypothesis using that test statistic? And we also learned that the two tools, that is the sign rank test and that of the U-test, are used to compare two populations. What if we have more than two samples? How do we compare the difference? And to do that, we use what we call the Kruskal test. The Kruskal test allows us to test whether there is difference among populations, not two populations. So if you have more than two populations, you cannot use the U-test or the sign rank test, but you can use the Kruskal test to compare these populations to check whether the medians are the same or they are different. And these are the tools that we have learned so far. There are a lot of tools, but with the course content, these are the statistical tools that you are supposed to know, and then know how they are applied to address or to answer environmental questions. And all this we are doing in order to see how best we can mitigate or reduce the impact of a project on the environment. So if we are able to identify the impact that a project is going to have on the environment, then we will be able to formulate measures to either reduce or stop, avoid, or pay in kind, or whatever. We'll be able to formulate, make decisions as to how to deal with the environmental impact, whether alternatives have to be proposed and all that. But to take any of these decisions, we need to know the impact the project is going to have on the environment. What is the magnitude of the impact? Is it great? Is it causing a reduction or is causing an increase? If it is causing a reduction or an increase, is it something important? Is it significant or not? So that is what we have done using our statistical tools. And I'm talking about mitigation. So we are now going to look at the impact mitigation. How do we deal with impact mitigation? How do we deal with impact mitigation? How do we
This neurometer switching.
So how do we deal with impact mitigation? How do we mitigate? How do we stop? How do we avoid the impact? So here we are saying that mitigation, they are measures that one will adopt to avoid or to reduce, and if possible, to rectify, to remedy significant adverse effects. These are all tools that one So these are measures that one will adopt to avoid or to reduce, and if possible, to rectify or to bring a remedy to significant adverse effects that are actually affecting the environment. You can reduce it. You can remedy the impact. You can avoid it. These are the reasons why we try to mitigate. So mitigation is just a measure that you need to use to reduce or to avoid or to repair the impacts on the environment. Sometimes people degrade the land, and there is the need for people to reclaim the land reclamation. You need to reclaim the land, get it back to its normal position, to normality, how it was. There is mining site. After they are able to mine, people have to go there and see how they can remedy the place, how they can reclaim the land, get the land back to its normal use. So sometimes some project would destroy the land, the environment, such that you need to remedy land reclamation. And I know you know I think there is a department here called land reclamation, or yeah, I think so. And that is their job. When the land is degraded, how do they reclaim the land back to its normal use? So there are hierarchies as to how to do this. You can avoid the impacts at the source. So if you have the ability or the tools, you can try to avoid the impact at the source, where the impact is coming from, where the problem is coming from. Try to avoid the impact at the source, where the impact the impacts are created. Reduce it or avoid it at all costs. You can reduce the impact at the source. And you know, some industries, they depending on the filters that are used, you can use certain filters to filter all the poisonous gases so that the gas that comes out is clean. Abate the impact at the site. Where the impact will have the problem on, you go and then do what? You go and try to make sure that the impact does not affect the environment there. So for instance, someone is producing gases. So your company will produce the gas, but you know that when the gas gets into the atmosphere, it will destroy the land or the organisms that are in the land. So you have to adopt measures. Yes, so you are producing the gas, but you have to adopt measures to make sure that the gas or whatever substances you are producing has no effect or negative effect on the environment. So you can abate it at the site. That is where the site is, I'm referring to where the impact will manifest itself. So you can reduce it at the site, not where the source is coming, not at the source, but at the site. Then you can also abate the impact at the receptor. So the receptor, so where the filter will be receiving the impact, yeah, you can reduce it there. Then you can repair the impacts. the impact has been created on the land already. So how do you rectify that? You have degraded the land. How do you restore the land back to its normal use? The water body has been polluted by your activities. How do you restore the water body to normality? Compensate in kind. You are producing gases. So, okay, I'm producing gases, but I have to pay this amount of money so that people can plant trees, maybe about 10 or 100 acres of trees, so that the trees will absorb the gas that you are producing. So you have to pay in kind. You want to build a road through my house, and that is going to create dust, more dust for me, for myself and my family. The building will not last long compared to if there had not been road constructed through the house or by the house. So you have to compensate in kind. So there are certain activities that will affect lives, and you need to compensate either by planting more trees or by paying in money and all that.
Reference number here. I mean, send more WhatsApp form. Okay.
So that is, oh, I wanted to get this guy off. Yeah, so that is, you are paying in kind for producing the gases into the environment. You pay in kind. Then environmental impact statement report. And this is a report that you have to submit to the Environmental Protection Agency on the findings that have been established based on the terms of reference. And when you are doing that, you should have the report. So the report, you should make sure that the report contains the following: summary, that is the executive summary, describing or briefly giving a brief description about your project. Description of the proposed activity. What do you want to do? And why is the need for the proposed project? The analysis. So you have to analyze the need for the project. So you need to describe the proposed activity and also the analysis of the need for the activity. And then if the activities you are proposing, the activity that you are proposing, the project that you are proposing to undertake, you have to also consider other alternatives. If I'm not allowed to go on with this activity, what other alternatives projects that you can go on? So you propose other alternatives that if the one you are actually writing the report on is not accepted, these are the alternatives that I want to go on. Can you consider any of them if you are not accepting the one I'm presenting before you? An analysis of the site selection procedure for the proposed activity. You want to bring in a project. So you have to analyze the area. Oh, if I bring this project into this area, because students are here, they will buy my product or they will patronize my product. I want to build a hostel here. You analyze the site, the selection procedure. So you have to consider all this. The building that you are going to put on, is it going to cause traffic? How beneficial is it going to be to the community or those in the surrounding or in the environment? So the selection procedure, what procedure did you use to select the site that you want to set up your project? And then the activities associated with that project. State them clearly. And you have to also describe existing baseline conditions. What was the conditions before you started the project? You have to describe them very well. The conditions in terms of the social aspect, in terms of the economic aspect, and then other areas that you think your project will have impact on. So you have to also describe what the potential positives and negative impacts will be as a result of your project. Analyze the importance of the potential impacts in relation to human health. You have plans that you want to develop so that you'll be able to mitigate any potential negative impact in relation to kind of waste prevention, minimization, or recycling. So you can talk of your plans. Are you going to to prevent the waste, or you are going to minimize it, or you are going to recycle the waste that are being produced. Plans that you have, or those that you will develop in order to monitor the environmental impact. When you start the project, what are your plans? What measures are you putting in place? Have you already have the measures? Are you already yet to develop those plans? So that you'll be able to monitor your project over time, so that you will be able to identify impacts and then be able to predict what is going to, because if you are able to monitor the project, you'll be able to know that, oh, for what I'm seeing, it means that in the next few months or 3 months, this is the impact that is likely to occur. And then what mitigation measures will you adopt? And there should be the need for contingency plans. Contingency plans that have been developed or will be developed in order to respond to unpredicted negative impacts. So what plans have you put in place so that impacts that you do not predict to happen, if they happen, what will you do? Impacts that you did not predict, should they occur, what plan can you take in order to stop them? You have to outline all this. And people will then review that. So when they review this, then they will have 12 copies. So that means you are going to submit 12 copies of your environmental impact statement to the Environmental Protection Agency, and they will do the auditing and then the review. So 12 copies of final drafts, you have to submit that to Environmental Assessment and Audit Department of the Environmental Protection Agency, so that they will review it. So before they will review it, or in the process of the review, or as part of the review, they will say they will give 21-day public notice. So a 21-day public notice of the impact statement shall be served. And the purpose of this is to see how public are going to react to that. Yeah, they are bringing this project. And then people will begin to react. We don't want that project. We don't want it. Or they will say that, yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one. Then they will be bringing ideas for how good that is. So you have to observe how is public reacting to the project that you are bringing in. So once after the 21 days notice, they will get reactions from people. Those it is affecting directly, and those that it will not be affecting. All of them will comment and they will get their reaction. You see what you are doing? I'll remove you. You are drawing lines on our slides. Please, can you remove that line before I remove you from the group?
Sorry, I want to remove something on the screen. That's why.
Please remove the line quickly. Thank you. So the Environmental Protection Agency shall then collate the view. So after people have reacted to the publication, then they will collate the views. The Environmental Protection Agency will collate the views. And then what will they do? They will have to factor the views of the public into their review process. So the reactions of the public will also help them to decide on whether they will allow the project to continue to be implemented or not. So a cross-sectorial committee, including the Ministry of Environment, Science and Technology, and other agencies shall assist the Environmental Protection Agency in the review process. So the review criteria, what do they look out for? They will have to look for the description of the development. You have to describe your project. The site where you are going to put the project up, you have to describe it clearly. Show the map and tell them what the land is being used for currently. What is the demarcated area? You have to demarcate so where the site is. What are they using it for now? They have to know what they are using the site for before you can think of putting up the project there. The baseline conditions, they will look at them. How is the baseline condition before they will allow you to develop the project there? Then what are the impacts? They will look at the impacts that you have identified. What methods did you use to identify the impacts? So the method that you use, that means to be clearly outlined. Prediction of the impact and magnitude. So now the magnitude of each impact should be clearly determined. And that should be predicted as deviation from baseline condition. Baseline condition is the condition that existed before you start the project. So any deviation from the baseline condition will mean that it could be positive deviation or negative deviation, will mean that your project is having impact or is the same. And that was why we use the statistical tool to determine whether to determine before and then after the project, how is it the same or the environmental condition has changed. So the data used to estimate the main impact should be clearly described. You have to describe the data that you have used to do that. And if there are gaps in the data, you need to identify those gaps and point them out. Assessment of importance. So the importance of all impacts, which then remain after mitigation, should be assessed using appropriate national and international standards. There are certain impacts that the tools that you propose to use to avoid or reduce them, that cannot or are not included. So you have to, so some of them you have to resort to using national and international standards. There are certain impacts you cannot avoid. There are certain impacts nationally or internationally, it is acceptable to produce those impacts. But then you have to go by the national and international standards so that you'll be able to go on. So you have to go and state, if I'm producing this impact by this national standard, this, that, I'm allowed to produce that, and this is what I'm going to pay or compensate in kind. Clearly state that. Then alternatives. You have proposed alternatives to avoid the impact. What other alternatives can you use to avoid or reduce the impact should the ones that you propose fail to work? Alternatives should have been considered where they are predictable and available to develop. So these alternatives, so you don't propose alternative measures that you know that they are implausible. They are not possible to implement. They are not practical to implement. Practically, you can't implement them. Or the alternatives you are proposing should be alternatives that you can actually practice or implement in reality. Then mitigation. So all the significant impacts should be considered for mitigation, and specific mitigation measures put forward where predictable, where practicable. So all your mitigation measures, outline them, outline the alternatives. Then you have to also state your commitment. How sure are you? Are you really committed? Then you present, how you present the report should be clear. It should be clear from vague sentences or technical terms, terms that people will not be able to understand. Write it in simple language. And then it should be balanced. It should be written, and make sure that you don't write the report in a way that you are thinking, oh, if I don't write it well, they will reject it. No, write it nicely, be sincere, point out what is wrong and what is right. Be objective when you are writing this. Don't write it to suit your project. Write it to suit the reality, not your project. Be independent when you are writing. Don't say because you want people to approve it, you ignore or you hide, information that can be used to assess that. So at the end of the day, hey, Yabua, please. So at the end of the day, they will assess your report based on these. Excellent. You are allowed to go on and do it, but there are some few income. There are no tasks that you have left incompleted. They just say everything is fine. Go ahead. B, there are minor omissions, just go and correct them and continue. Satisfactory, so they've satisfied that despite omission. So with the D and the E, you have to work and then resubmit. So pass well attempted, but must hold considered. Just unsatisfactory because of omission. So in this situation, you can't proceed with the project. You have to make the corrections and then resubmit for assessment. E, the same thing, and then F2, the same thing. Now, public hearing. The public hearing. So in the process, so the above, what we have will be their overall assessment. And then immediately they finish their assessment, there will be public hearing. So the Environmental Protection Agency, they shall organize public hearing on the proposed undertaking or activity. And that will be consist of 3 to 5 member panel, where the president of the panel should be from the affected area or those affected by the project. The president should be coming from that area. And this thing. And this might take more than 90 days period. It might take more than 90 days to complete. And then once everything is fine, then they'll have to give environmental, they have to make decision, they have to give you permit, environmental permitting decision. So when the draft is found to be acceptable, then they will ask you to continue. If it is not acceptable, you have to resubmit a revised statement or conduct further studies to modify the statement. If they give you permission to go ahead with your project and you delay for more than 1 year, they will terminate the project. You can't continue to use that one. Once you don't start within 1 year or after 1 year period, you can use the permit again. So we have to monitor the project. Now we allow the project to continue, to start. We have to monitor the project. Why do we monitor? We monitor because there are certain projects. For instance, if you consider roads, airport stations, power stations, or petrochemical plants, these ones, sometimes the effect they have on the environment takes long time to manifest. So if you don't monitor, you may forget about the impact that is coming from these, and that will be disaster. So it's good to monitor. So this requires, so it is required in the environmental impact assessment to have monitoring and auditing in the process, so that people will be able to monitor, and that will be involved. That will involve measuring and recording the physical environment, the social aspect of the environment, and the economic aspect. So all the physical indicators, you have to measure them. How are the buildings deteriorating? If you have roads, the airports, the power station, in terms of the atmosphere, how is the temperature of the area changing because of this particular project? The dust in the environment, how is it changing because of the rules or this? These projects, how are they physically affecting the environment? The trees, how are they like because of the presence of the project? You look at the social aspect. How are people changing their social life? When the project was not there, now the project is there. Economic activities, you have to check the indicators that define this. Because of this project, now a lot of people are employed here, or a lot of people become unemployed here. A lot of people don't want to go to school because of this project. You monitor to identify all these things due to the project. So we have to look at the traffic flow, the water quality, the air quality, the noise level, and the level of employment or unemployment. Monitoring will improve project management. Once you monitor, you are able to tell people, oh, do this. This thing is not working. You have to do this. But if you don't monitor, they may see them, but they won't act. But they won't act. But the moment you monitor and you advise them, hey, this thing is not going well, please rectify that, you will see that they will have no choice than to do that, to do the rectification, because you have identified it and you inform them. Monitoring can be used as an early warning system, like I just said. You need to monitor and identify effects or impacts that probably you did not predict to happen. Once you monitor, you'll be able to see them and then adopt alternatives or take a remedial action to reverse the impact or to stop the impact or reduce the impact. And once you monitor, you can use that to correct unanticipated impacts that you didn't expect to happen. Once you monitor, you will know that, hey, this is the way it is happening. If we allow it to continue, this is what is going to happen. Meanwhile, maybe that was not part of the impact that you predicted when you were writing the report or when you were doing the analysis. And then, because some things will happen that will be new to both those who review your report and the one running the project. Once you get those information, you have a database where you then include them. You then know that, oh, this project, when it was going on, this was what we didn't expect to have, but it happened. Build a database and incorporate all this information in. And that will be good for people to use in the future. And once you also get that, it is useful for you to use to mediate between parties that are interested in the project. And once you are able to record what is happening, because you are monitoring and recording what is happening, the documents are there. So people who are coming to monitor, to audit, it becomes easier for them because they have information that is already obtained from the monitoring. They just use the information that they've gotten from the monitoring, and then that will be easier for them to do impact auditing. So the impact auditing, it is about comparing the impacts that you predicted when you were writing the report to those that actually happened after you implemented the project. So when people come to audit, they will look, okay, this was what you said you were going to do to reduce the impact, to avoid the impact. The impact that was there before you started, is it the same? The impacts that you predicted, are they actually those that you predicted? Are they actually happening or not? Is it the reality? And once this happens, they are able to assess whether their prediction performs satisfactorily. You said, when I start my project, these are the impacts I expect to happen. And this is how I expect to address them. And then when you audit the check, are they actually the case? Those you predicted, are they those that are actually coming up? And the alternative, the measures that you propose to reduce or avoid them, are you actually using them well? Is it performing satisfactorily or not? If you are not, they may terminate the contract. They may terminate the project. And if you are using them, yeah, they will recommend it very well, satisfactory, and then you move on. So monitoring and auditing goes together. You need to monitor and get information, and that based on that information, you audit. And this can make important contribution to better planning and future EIA projects. So once you monitor and get the information, you build your database, put the information there. So in the future, someone writing a report for the same project, it becomes easier because the impacts are well known. Alternatives, methods to mitigate the impacts will be known because someone has already done it, and you have the information, you have the experience on that. So therefore, monitoring and auditing allow all participants to learn from past experience. Those that are participating in the project, those that are the proponents of the project, the experts, they all learn from the experience. And when you monitor and audit, this will contribute to general enhancing of the credibility of the proponent. Once everything goes well, then people get happy. What we discuss is actually true, and everybody is happy. Now, participation and consultation in environmental impact process. What should you do when you allow people to participate? There are certain things you should do. There are certain things you should not do when you are allowing people to participate. And what is participation and consultation? This is the process of responding to contributions of local concern before local or concerned groups before, during, and after the undertaking. So the consultation and participation aspect, at all times, those that are affected by the project or the local people, those within the environment where your project is, you always have to discuss with them allow them to participate, take decisions with you, and then you move on. So participation and consultation, what is the purpose? You want to establish dialogue between the public and decision makers to ensure that the decision makers assimilate the public views into their decisions. So those that are, so when you write the project, you need to know their views from the public, the views from those that is affected. You need all these to factor into your report. If you ignore them and you start the project, they may say no, and that means you are going to run at a loss. So when you allow people to participate, these are the benefits. It will improve the decision making so that people don't take wrong decisions. Issues that are affecting the residents or the local people, those issues will also be identified and factored into your report, and you will not have any problem with anybody when you start your project. And also when you are building when you want to put up the project, because you allow a lot of people to participate, you are able to tell how much far can I go with this project. Should I start with minimum capital? What amount of capital should I invest? Will I get the needed raw material to build this kind of big factory and all that? You need the people to assist you. There are certain areas that are waterlogged, but because you have not lived in the area, you just come and go there with your project. And then one day there is rain and then the whole place is flooded. You may not want that. So you need to, allow people to come in, consult with them, let them participate, and then everything will be fine. And then because you allow people to participate, you get knowledge from people about the site, just like I mentioned. You get knowledge about the area that you are going to put your project. And then once you allow people to take part, you will be able to get measures that you can, because it's not just going to be from local people. You are going to meet experts in environment, science, and technology, and all these people will give you guides as to what measures, mitigation measures you can use. And when you are doing this, because you allow people to participate, you take their views, and that will make your environmental impact statement truthful, because you are incorporating people's views, not just only your views. That may bias your report. You incorporate people's view, and that makes it truthful and more complete. And when you do that, it also helps you to monitor any condition of the development, and also help in evaluating relative significance of likely impact. Relative significance. So when you allow the people to participate, they will tell you, okay, if your project is probably producing this impact, oh, we are fine with that and we can go on with that. Otherwise, no way. So you will know the relevance of the significance, the relative significance of the impacts. You will know before you start. So so you want people to take part, you want to consult people, you want people to come. Maybe you organize meeting for the community to come, and then you tell them what you are going to do and pick their views. You invite the elders and they come. How will you make the participation to be effective? Effective public participation and consultation. You have to know how to make sure that your participation is effective. Don't bring people that will not understand the language that you are going to say. So there are certain guides to take so that your participation, the people participate and they are effective. You don't allow people to participate and their minds are not in what you are doing. So you have to first identify people that are affected by your project. Don't go and just pick anyone because the person is coming from the area or the person has knowledge. Pick those affected by your project. You also have to provide accurate and information that people can understand. So you need to provide them, when you meet them, tell them the reality of your project, be truthful. Let them understand, present them information that is understandable to them. Pertinent and timely information, give them small information on time. Yes, sir. And then dialogue between decision makers and those affected. So there should be those that are going to take decision based on whether your project should continue or whether you should start your project or not. And those that are affected by the project or by the decision, there should be dialogue between all the three together. And also, because there is 21-day public notice, people have reacted. You have to factor whatever they say into the decision. Then feedback about actions taken and how the public influence the decision. All these things should be discussed. So these are the methods that you can use to allow people to take part in your environmental impact report, because you just need their view. So these are the methods you can use to allow them to participate. You can use a questionnaire to seek their views. You can advertise the project to seek their views. You can use the media to seek their concerns about the project. You can use personal contact, maybe phone numbers, you call and then discuss with them. Specific people, community liaison staff. You can use these people to communicate to the community about the project so that you get their views. Community advisory committee. You can consult these people and then get their views about the project. These are the methods you can use to get information from those affected by the project. You can use group presentation, organize them, go and then present to them. Workshops, you can use public meetings, then you can use public inquiries to get all this information. So any of these methods can be used. You can use one method or three methods and then get your information from them. But we want the information to be effective so that they will be able to respond appropriately. So it depends on the target group, people that you want to communicate to, then you use the appropriate method. If you are dealing with people who have no television sets, then you go and advertise the thing on television. How will they hear and react? There is no way. If you use highly technical language, there is no way they are going to understand and react. So they will you use technical language, they may not get certain information that are vital, and they will say, oh, it's fine. But when you start in reality, they will say, no way. And then information on different media will reach different sectors. So you have to know people that you are communicating to before you do this. And then groups such as minority and low-income groups that do not take part in decision-making are special concern and should be reached. So you have to identify which groups are the minority that if you use this particular method, you can reach them. Try to find out whether there is such minority group so that you try to reach out to them so that they can give you their information. So when you are communicating, of course, there are going to be disparities, and those disparities will affect your environmental assessment report. So if you go and hold meetings at places where the target people are not represented, of course, this is not good. Don't hold meetings at places where the target people who are affected by the project are not represented. Also, when you hold meetings or when you don't understand the existing structures within a community, and then you go to wrong people, then you are going to have a problem. You have to understand the existing structures or the powers in the community so that you go to the right people. Sometimes you don't hold meetings at fancy places where people will be engaged with the environment that they are in. So all their mind is looking at fancy stuff, and then they will not have interest or they will not pay attention to whatever you discuss. That is not good. You can rather do it in your local churches or schools. Within that environment, don't pick them to fancy hotels, and then their concern will not be whatever you are saying. And because of the treatment you give them also, may force them to just say, oh, it's fine. Meanwhile, it's not fine. It's just because you've given them too nice treatment. So that may affect your information. Newspapers, publications, and this, not everyone reads newspaper. So identify where they get their information and then talk to them. Otherwise, people will be disenfranchised from giving the right, seeing or knowing that this is the project that is going to be implemented. So agencies using national radios. It's not everyone that may use a national radio. So you need to get to use the local one where the affected people can have access to the media or to the station to listen to the information. So the disadvantages of this is that, yes, as we say, there are advantages. Of course, there are also disadvantages. Because it involves a lot of people, some people may get upset. So it may upset a good relationship with the local authority. Yeah, that is possible. Or there may be disagreement. And then it carries the risk of giving a project high profile. You know, there are certain projects, maybe the project is not that big. Now you have to advertise, and this will give you cost. Because you advertise your project, you have to pay money. And the time involved too will be too much. So that is one aspect of this, the disadvantages. The cost may be too high. Meanwhile, the project may not be that much. And then it may not lead to conclusive decision because people will have different concerns and different priorities. This is likely to happen. And you have to find a way of dealing with them. These are some of the disadvantages. And most developers only begin consultation and participation when public is planning appeal and threatening to a lawsuit to stop their project. This is not also good because, you know, sometimes you allow people to participate and then there may be disagreement and then you go on the project. It is not good for you to start, thinking of allowing them to participate or consulting them. You don't wait for them to start threatening that they will take you to court, then you start to consult them. That is going to be very difficult. It's not good. And here are the advantages. Frustration, escalation, and anger will be avoided. Local opposition and environmental problems will also be avoided. Produce measures that are likely to be innovative, viable, so you get information from the people that can be innovative, viable, and publicly acceptable than those proposed solely by the developer. You can get information from them, even better ones than those that you are proposing. And also there is cheap and smooth implementation of the project if the local people agree with the project. Few people will be protesting. Sometimes they may be impacted, but because you've consulted them, they will not be protest that much. There will be ways to deal with them. And more willing labor force. There are certain projects that you can impress the people in there. And it will be easy to get them because they agree with you. And few people will complain even if there are impacts such as noise. But if you don't consult them and they just wake up the following day and they saw that you are there doing that, that will be an issue. So you need to, these are some advantages that you get from them. And here we have challenges. And then these are the recommendations that one needs to use. So we are recommending that use facilitators who knows the indigenous language. So use people who understand the language of the local people so that they can explain better. The culture also important. You go there and you don't follow the culture, they will sit down and listen to you, but they may not give you the right information. And then creating of appropriate settings and locations for consultation. Where you consult should be appropriate for them. And when you are presenting the information to them, it should be simple. Let them understand what it is so that they don't at the end say that I didn't know that this was what you were saying. You have to respect the people, respect the leadership pattern, the religious and cultural belief of the people. You have to respect them so that they will have their trust in you. They will also respect you back and be willing and ready to give you the information. Otherwise, if you go and disrespect the leadership pattern, the indigenous leadership pattern, the religious beliefs of the people, the cultural and norms of the people, they may not sack you, but they won't give you the right information. They will allow you and wait for you to start the project, and they will give you problems. So you have to recognize that in some cases there may be different factions. So you have to identify that, oh, these people and these people, they don't meet and all that. Try to identify them so that you deal with that. And then provision of resources. So sometimes you need to provide resources, travel funds, and water so that people can participate and consult, participate and provide information. And then you have to also recognize the time frame. You don't tell them the next day we want to meet you. No, give them time. And also you don't keep them long. You don't keep them long for meetings. So you have to respect the time frame. Yabua. So we have strategic environmental impact assessment. And this part has to do with a situation where you have several projects, and their combined impact is so great. Maybe if it is just one project, the impact on the environment is not that much. But because there are 10, 20 projects running at the same environment, the impact may be great. So here we are saying that we need to use strategic environmental impact assessment procedure so that we'll be able to assess and be able to get information on this. So we are saying that this is defined as a formalized, systematic, and comprehensive process of evaluating environmental effects of policy, plan, or program, and its alternatives, including preparation of a written report on the findings of the evaluation and using the findings in public accountable decision making. So usually, the normal environmental impact assessment do not take into account the additive effects of small projects. So additive effects of small projects. So your small project, the project on its own may not have that much effect on the environment. But if you have 10 to 20 of such projects, then the impact will be great. So the additive environmental impact assessment do not look at the additive effect of so many projects, but only a single project. But the strategic environmental assessment takes into account impact of several projects. So the additive effects of many small projects or management schemes that do not require environmental impact assessment. There are said a lot of projects you don't need to go through environmental impact assessment before they allow you. But when there are many, then the effect will come. So you need C to do the monitoring and then evaluate these impact. And also there are induced impacts where one project simulates other development. Your project, as there may be other projects, in terms of the project alone, it doesn't have any problem. But because there is another project, that project may induce an impact. It may simulate one project. So one project, so they may induce impacts where one project simulates other development. So impacts that are as a result of the course of one project, but not the project itself. And then we have the synergistic impacts where the impact of several projects exceeds the mere sum of their individual projects. So you may have them together and they individually, they don't produce much. But when you sum the impacts together, it is too much. And then we also have global warming, global impacts such as biodiversity, and then the greenhouse gas emission. So these impacts are not considered under environmental impact assessment, but under strategic environmental assessment. This is where we end our lecture. I know you have a lecture at 1, and then so it's time. So you guys can go for your lecture. Any question? Any question? Hey. Any question?
No, sir.
Any question?
No, sir.
Okay, so you guys, is it online meeting that you have or face-to-face?
Face-to-face.
It's face-to-face.
Face-to-face.
All right, so I will save and then send the lecture, the record to you. I will share the link via YouTube for you to.
Thank you, sir.
So prepare for next week meeting. We'll be doing tutorials. Is there a question? Someone with a question? Can we close? Can we close?